Bom dia a todos, sejam bem-vindos à videoconferência referente aos resultados do terceiro trimestre de 2025 da Iochpe-Maxion. Eu sou Rodrigo Caraça, gerente sênior de Relações com Investidores da companhia, e irei conduzir a videoconferência de hoje. Presentes na videoconferência e disponíveis para a sessão de perguntas e respostas estão o Sr. Peter Klinkers, CEO, e o Sr. Renato Salum, CFO. Informamos que essa videoconferência está sendo gravada e será disponibilizada no site de Relações com Investidores da companhia, juntamente com a respectiva apresentação. Ressaltamos que o Sr. Peter conduzirá a apresentação em inglês. Para sua conveniência, estão disponíveis traduções simultâneas para português e inglês. Elas podem ser acessadas por meio do ícone em forma de globo, identificado como Interpretation, localizado na parte inferior central da tela. Ao clicar nesse ícone, serão apresentadas três opções: áudio original, português e inglês. Selecione aquela que melhor atenda à sua necessidade. Para o Q&A, sessão de perguntas e respostas, orientamos que se manifestem via ícone de Q&A, no botão inferior de sua tela. Por padrão da dinâmica, seus nomes serão anunciados para que façam sua pergunta ao vivo. Nesse momento, uma solicitação para ativar seu microfone aparecerá na tela. Vale ressaltar que parte das perguntas serão respondidas em inglês, e mais uma vez pedimos a todos que utilizem a ferramenta de tradução, caso sintam necessidade. Antes de prosseguir, gostaríamos de esclarecer que eventuais declarações que possam ser feitas durante essa videoconferência, relativas às perspectivas de negócios da companhia, projeções e metas operacionais e financeiras, constituem-se em crenças e premissas da diretoria da Iochpe-Maxion, bem como informações atualmente disponíveis para a companhia. Considerações futuras não são garantias de desempenho, envolvem riscos, incertezas e premissas, pois se referem a futuros e, portanto, dependem de circunstâncias que podem ou não ocorrer. Gostaria agora de passar a palavra ao Sr. Peter Klinkers, CEO da Iochpe-Maxion. Sr. Peter, por favor, pode prosseguir.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for listening in to our third quarter 2025 earnings call. Before we start to share some slides and talk about some numbers, as we do usually, I want to come back to something I said earlier this year during our Investor Day in São Paulo, when I referred to a quote from Ayrton Senna. I think all of us know him, who said, you may remember I said this, who said, when it's sunny weather, you cannot overtake 15 cars, but when it rains, you can. And so why am I referring to that quote again? Is because I think when you look at the third quarter results, it is reflecting some rainy weather in some regions, particularly North America. And so we cannot change the weather, of course, but we can try to adapt as fast as possible, maybe faster than others. And we can try to mitigate that rainy weather in one particular area with some more sunny weather and some more performance in other regions. And I think that's what you will see back when you look at our numbers and when we talk through the slides. So let's keep that in mind. That we can go have a look at some of those numbers. If you look at the next slide, then you see we used to look at global production ex-China. So you see a little bit of contraction in LV, light vehicle, 0.3% this year, or next year, some more light contraction, maybe stability. But it's not great. There's not great growth at this moment. If we look on the truck side, on the right side, I think here it doesn't look too bad. I mean, it's plus 2%, including China, minus 5%, excluding China. But if you look, and we will talk about it more during this call, if we look particularly at North America, which is a very important market for us, especially when we talk about components, not so much when we talk about wheels, but for components, it's very important. That segment, and especially the heavy truck segment is very important. You got class 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and most of our business when we talk components in North America is actually in class 7, and by far the most is in class 8. And so the higher up the classes, the more contraction we've been seeing already in quarter 2, but quarter 3 was particularly down in that area, in that segment, and we will talk about it a little bit more during the call. If we look on what it does to our net revenue, this market situation, you can see our revenue in the third quarter mounted up to 3.8 billion reais, which is slightly down, 4.5% down to the same period in last year, 2024. And so there is another slide where I will talk a little bit more in detail about it, but I can guarantee you that if we would have had only half the drop of what we have seen in North America truck, that number would have been up instead of down. And so this has been impacting our overall net revenue meaningfully. Our gross profit, I would say, given that situation in North America, truck very healthy, remained at about 12%, 12.1% in the third quarter of 25, and we're actually pretty happy with that number. Our EBITDA amounted to 390 million reais in the third quarter, and that represents a margin of 10.3%, excluding restructuring costs, which amount to approximately 32 million reais. Our net income was 35 million, and with all of that, our leverage ended up at 2.55 times, a little bit higher than we wanted, but still a little bit lower than in the same period 1 year ago. We will also talk a little bit more about growth, particularly in South America. There is a dedicated slide about that in the remainder of the presentation. If we look in more detail on our revenue, you can see that in the third quarter 2025, we were pretty much equal to the last year, same period. And if you look at the 9 months 2025, we actually show some growth. But if you exclude FX, these numbers are a little bit down compared to last year, same period. And so, as I said before, this North American truck market situation has impacted both the 9 months, but more so the third quarter of 2025. I can also tell you that when our impact was the highest in the third quarter 2025, also our mitigation was the highest in the third quarter 25. That's one of the reasons why the numbers are pretty equal between the 2 quarters, last year and this year. And so that means the more impact we have been having, the more we have been able to offset that in other segments, other products, other regions in the world, which is, I think, a good thing to have happening in the company. If we look on our revenue by product, as we already saw happening in the second quarter, you can see, of course, with that North America truck situation impacting components, our components business very meaningfully, you can see that the percentage of wheels in the company has been growing. And so, again, that's because of components going down, but it's also because wheels going up overall in the world. And so right now, it's about an 80-20% split between wheels and components. If we go to the next slide, you see that also in our revenue by customer. Clearly, see Traton. Traton is a global customer for us for wheels and for components, but we have a big business in components with Traton. That's their international brand in the US, and you see that revenue going down year over year, same quarter. Same for Daimler, of course. Again, this is a global business, and we do a lot of wheels with them around the world. We do business with them for components in South America, but just the impact of North America truck makes that bar go down in 2025 meaningfully versus 2024. The good thing is, again, that some of the other bars are going up. And so if you look at customers like Ford, or you look at Toyota, or you look at Volkswagen, we are actually gaining quarter over quarter. And so that means in total, the impact of the North American truck market is there, but it's not as big as it would be if we would not have been winning in other segments with other customers in other regions. If we look more in detail in other regions, I think South America, clearly, I would say we are continuing. You've been seeing that already in the first and the second quarter. We're doing it again in the third quarter. We are outperforming the market. The market quarter over quarter was pretty flat from a light vehicle point of view, and it was pretty down, even though it's only 4,000 trucks, but pretty much down on the commercial vehicle side, quarter over quarter, year over year. Contrary to that, I think Maxion clearly up in light vehicles in a flat market, and not as much down at all in the commercial vehicle sector. So overall, our revenue is up in the first 9 months of the year, meaningfully 6-7%. And even in that third quarter, it's still up by 2.6% versus the same quarter last year. On the other hand, if we look at North America, we see this is where the big drop is, and not so much in light vehicles, but specifically in commercial vehicles. And you look at some of the market numbers and they say it's -5%, or maybe when you look at North America, it's -25%. But in the segment where we operate, Class 7, mostly Class 8, we've recently seen some public announcements from big customers. I talked about Tretton. They were announcing their sales were down in the third quarter at about 64%. Daimler Truck said their sales were down close to 40%. We think their production may be a little bit more down than what their sales were down, because already in the second quarter they were down. So they've been slowing down production even more than their sales has been slowing down in order to build down some inventory. So overall, our numbers reflect very much what is happening in the market of heavy trucks in North America. And so here's where we see the big drop in our revenue quarter over quarter, and with that third quarter also for the 9 months in 2025. If we go to EMEA, this used to be Europe, and now we call it EMEA. The only difference is the South African plant, which is, I believe, our smallest light vehicle aluminum plant. But of course, the comparison between the 2 quarters and the 9 months compared to last year, that's apples to apples. It's the same perimeter. But I would say I'm happy to say that we have a strong performance, stronger than the market performance, and that's true for both light vehicles and in commercial vehicles. And it's true not only for revenue, but I can tell it's also true when you look at units. And so that does support our overall global results. Now, the units is clear. We're gaining share because the market in light vehicles is pretty flat. Our numbers are up. Our units are up in light vehicles. And in commercial vehicles, okay, again, it's only 10,000 trucks more, but the market has been coming back a little bit in the third quarter of 25. Let's hope that continues into the fourth quarter and into next year. But at the same time that the market came back, also our market share keeps on growing. And so besides the units being up, we can also say that the recovery of higher raw material costs and other inflationary costs and the positive mix. And with that, I mean, we're supplying, for instance, on the light vehicle aluminum segment, we are supplying more and more the premium segment. That all contributes to a positive story, I would say, in Europe, EMEA. We go to the next slide. Asia, our revenue a little bit down in the third quarter 2025, but I can assure you that we will be growing in the Asian market, which, as you know, for us is mainly, not only, but it's mainly the Indian market. We're very focused on India with our operations and with our sales. And so I wholeheartedly believe that we will be growing in this growing market, and you'll see that back in 2026. With that, what does that all do to our profit and our profit margin? As I said before, a 12.1% gross profit. Actually, we think that's a very appropriate number given the circumstances that we talked about when we talked about the market. And so, 460 million in the third quarter, or 1.44 billion in the 9 months. From a gross profit point of view, we think those are actually very strong numbers. We go to the next slide. We see our EBITDA and our EBITDA margin, and here's where we see a little bit of the contraction, where we cannot fully mitigate all of that heavy rain when we talk about Ayrton Senna and his rain, the heavy rain in North America from a truck market point of view. And so our margin, excluding non-recurring effects, primarily restructuring costs in North America, ended up at 10.3% in the third quarter, and now amounts to 10.2% year to date. We go to the next the net income, 35 million in the third quarter. I would say, this again, North America truck production situation impacted our results meaningfully, also from a net income point of view. On top of that, we had the restructuring costs, and on top of that, of course, as we all know, financial expenses are higher simply because of the CDI, of the CILIC cost. So that's what we see back here on this slide as well. When we look at investments, we always talk about disciplined CapEx management, and I think you see that back on this slide. Our investments are actually down year over year, and of course we do that because of some of the market slump that we see primarily in North America. So we try to manage our investments down there where appropriate, there where possible, and we think at the end of the year we will come in with the number that we have been talking about in the prior calls, maybe a little bit lower because of the adaptations that we're doing because of the market situation. We go to the next one. Our leverage, is a little bit higher than we were targeting. But given the market situation, we're still happy to say, even with that, we are slightly below where we were 1 year ago, even though we are slightly up from the prior quarter's presentation. So 2.55 was the number for our leverage at the end of Q3. Go to the next. Our gross debt, not so much change on this slide. We think it's a healthy composition of currencies when it comes to our debt. When you look at the term, 93% is long-term debt. So that's very healthy. And if you look on the top right, also our liquidity, our cash situation seems to be very healthy with 1.6 billion cash in hand. And on top of that, 760 million of undrawn credit lines. If you look at the cost on the bottom, I don't think these costs are uncompetitive. It's actually, these are pretty good numbers. I think the plus 1.2% is competitive, the 3.5% in euros competitive, and the 5.4% in dollars is competitive. It's the CDI that is not competitive, but we all know about that situation. We go to the next one. Going away a little bit from the financials, talking about the business. We present here our third quarter 2025 SOPs, but I think it's more important to mention to you guys that when we talk about market share gains and outperforming in some important regions for us in the world, when we look at wheels, I can tell you that our new business wins. So the amount of new orders, of wins we have, is significantly higher year to date 2025. And then I don't talk 5-7%, I talk tens of percentages, significantly higher than the same period last year. And already last year was better than the prior year. And so it's another proof for me when I look at the numbers that we are having some very good traction with the company globally on winning new business at appropriate margins. We go to the next slide. If you win share, especially when you win share in a growing market, and a good example of that is the South American light vehicle aluminum wheel market. Our wheels are wanted and cars are wanted as well, and so you wanna service your customers correctly, you need to do something. And I think you could have seen in the press release that we have been working hard on being able to service our customers like we want and to profit, of course, from this market growth. And so besides supporting our customers temporarily from global operations, which is very important to be doing, and we can do that as a global company. Also, we are redeploying assets from entities around the world, Europe, Asia, back to Brazil, to our plants in Limeira and in Santo André. And on top of that, I believe you may have all read about our recent acquisition of a majority share in Polymetal, which is an aluminum wheel factory in Argentina. And of course, the Argentinian market is doing well, and we believe it will be doing well going forward also. But the main strategic target here is to expand this factory, and it will be much more efficient for us to expand the factory here. In fact, we have equipment standing ready to be installed on adjacent land in San Luis. And so doing that in Argentina creates for us a situation where we will be able to produce wheels that we produce today in Brazil for Argentina, to produce those wheels in Argentina, which again frees up capacity in Brazil for Brazil. And so this is just an example of how we try to, service a growing market where we gain share in a very efficient way, meaning without spending a huge amount of money by building a new plant. We try to figure out a way to serve the market correctly and profit from that market growth that we are having in that market. With that, let's go to the next slide. We talk a lot about steel components and steel wheels and aluminum wheels, but we don't talk so much about the two materials being merged. And I cannot tell you yet that it is happening, but I can tell you that we have been trying for some time, and I can tell you that we're making a lot of progress, and we're now at a stage where we are involved with two OEMs, one in Asia and India, one in Europe, for making a wheel that is made out of steel and out of aluminum. And as you guys know, wheel is a very important styling element, but the styling you only need there where you look at it, not there where you put the tire on it. And so we would make the rim out of steel, and we would make the disc out of aluminum. And with that, we save costs on the steel part, and we guarantee the styling on the aluminum part. Not easy, but I think if anybody will be able in the world to make it happen, to pull it off, it will be Maxion, because we are kind of the only one that is producing both steel wheels and aluminum wheels. And in many instances, by the way, we produce it at the same location or in the same region. And so, this would be a true strategic advantage for our company if we will be able to make that happen. Again, I can't guarantee it yet. We're working at it with our customers, but I hope we will be able to talk about it a little bit more in one of the following earnings calls. With that, I think let's go to the last slide, wrap it up. I think, it's not what we wanted, the market that we see in North America, and it's impacting us. But we believe that is a temporary situation, and we believe we will be very strong when that market comes back. I'm not saying if that market comes back, I say when it comes back. And I think in the meantime, we're doing a good job on managing through that situation locally and mitigating that situation with our results in the rest of the world. And so that makes us, I believe, a resilient company. We continue to deliver appropriate productivity. We continue to be disciplined in our costs, and we continue to be disciplined in our pricing management. I can guarantee you that. So from a growth point of view, I've given some examples on how we try to grow and what we're doing with new business wins. It's really a good story. And I think, overall, very important as well, our customers remain to see us as a very reliable, stable, and high-performing partner. And I come back to Ayrton Senna. Maybe we go a little bit slower because of some heavy rain locally, but I believe we will be able to overtake. And with that, I pass it on for Q&A.
Agora daremos início à sessão de perguntas e respostas. Pedimos por gentileza que façam todas as perguntas de uma só vez, aguardando a resposta da companhia. Lembrando que para fazer perguntas, orientamos que sejam enviadas via ícone de Q&A no botão inferior de sua tela. Por padrão de dinâmica, seus nomes serão anunciados para que façam sua pergunta ao vivo. Nesse momento, uma solicitação para ativar seu microfone aparecerá na tela. A nossa primeira pergunta é do Gabriel Tinem, do Santander. Gabriel, por favor, você pode prosseguir.
A capacidade já foi adequada, ou se ainda tem alguma pendência ainda para ocorrer? E do lado de alocação de capital, se você puder comentar também sobre o racional da aquisição da participação da Polymetal e um pouco mais da oportunidade que vocês estão enxergando nesses mercados. E ainda dentro desse tópico, se vocês puderem comentar também do mercado norte-americano, né? Comentar um pouquinho sobre a visão que vocês tinham com relação à geração de caixa E como é que fica o pensamento aqui para desalavancagem para 25 e também um pouquinho para 26? Obrigado, pessoal.
Okay, thank you very much. I believe that were three questions, so I will try to give three answers. I believe the first question was around our management of capacity in North America, and of course, we have been adapting our capacity in the sense that we adapt headcount, and so a very significant number of people have been leaving the facility. We hope to see them back in the future. I'm sure we will see a good part of those people back in our plan, but in that way, the capacity has been adapted. We are also convinced that when this market comes back, and the longer the downturn would last, the steeper that comeback would be, we believe. When it comes back, we are very well prepared with our existing operations in Mexico from a components point of view, as well as with the new plant that somewhere in 2026 will be ready to operate. And it might just be that is exactly the same time when this market comes back. So I hope that answered the question from a capacity point of view. The other question, the second question was, I think, around the rationale on polymetal in Argentina. And as I said, the light vehicle market in Mercosur, particularly in Brazil, is doing well, and we are doing well in that market. And so, if you're gaining market share in a growing market, you also need to make sure that you have the capacity. And so, instead of building yet another new plant, we've come up with some other solutions that require some investment, but a lot less investment than just building a new plant. And so the redeployment of assets, getting equipment from around the world, there where we need it less than in Brazil, is one pillar. And the other pillar is expanding capacity in Argentina at a much lower capex number than when we would build a new plant, for instance, in Brazil. And so, those actions together, we believe will make sure that we can supply our customers, which is really what we want to do, because this is a very good market for us and for our customers. The third question, I think, was around the market in North America. And so I think it's impossible to say what will happen to this market on the short term. I think most industry analysts would agree with me when we say this market will come back. But if you ask me what day, what months, exactly, that's going to be very hard to predict. But we believe that somewhere, and this would be our assumption, that somewhere during the course of 2026, which is not too far away anymore, by the way, we're having the November earnings call. Somewhere during the course of 2026, this market will turn, and then we should be ready to supply this market with a steep increase, which is our assumption. I hope this answers the questions you asked.
Pode sim, obrigado, Peter.
Thank you.
A nossa próxima pergunta é do Gabriel Rezende, do Itaú BBA. Gabriel, por favor, pode prosseguir.
Obrigado, Rodrigo. Bom dia, pessoal. Eu só queria fazer um follow-up na questão de América do Norte. Entendi o comentário do Peter de que a gente deveria esperar alguma recuperação ali no verão de 2026, né? Estou assumindo aqui que seria o meio de 2026, mas só queria confirmar como que vocês têm sentido ali o body language das montadoras, né? Em termos de pedido, sinalização para os próximos 2, 3 meses. Eu entendo que há mais ou menos uns 2, 3 meses atrás a gente viu uma deterioração rápida no segmento. Só queria entender se essa deterioração ela parou de acontecer, ou se ela ainda está acontecendo, se o outlook das montadoras tem piorado na margem ou já estabilizou. Pensando agora no quarto tri, não tanto em termos de recuperação, mas se os volumes começaram a estabilizar. E aí também só queria confirmar a questão da reestruturação agora no terceiro tri, se a gente deveria esperar alguma coisa também em outros mercados, considerando eventualmente em 2026 com volumes aqui performando um pouco pior do que 2025, talvez o mercado de pesados no Brasil, enfim, só confirmar essa expectativa da companhia, e se a gente deveria ter custos adicionais de reestruturação nos próximos tris em outras geografias por conta disso. Obrigado.
Hey, Gabriel, thank you for the good questions. And so, North American market, I think the visibility from our customers is very low. That's unfortunately something that we need to admit. That being said, volumes are not only stabilizing, we see an increase of volumes, but we only see it for November and December. So we like it, and we will make it happen. And it's a good, it's a good thing to happen, but we're not sure if this is, the start of a structural recovery or it's just a temporary impact in the end of 2025. And so, I hope it's more structural and it's the beginning of a strong recovery. But right now we see that happening in the last 2 months of the years, but we don't have that visibility yet for the first quarter of 2026. So some good news, but let's see if that's structural or it's just temporary, but we'll take it. When you talk about us seeing any potential auto restructuring, particularly in CV in 2026, I would say Europe not. The market should come back to some extent, and we are gaining market share. And so I think 2026 will be a good year for us when it comes to Europe. The same in Asia. I think we'll have a good year in Asia next year with growing volumes in both India and China for us from a commercial vehicle point of view. And North America, my take would be that, what we lost in 2025, particularly in the second half, hopefully we will gain it back over the year 2026, maybe a little bit more towards the second half of the year than the first half of the year. But let's see how this situation in November, December that we see right now develops into 2026. When you talk about South America, interest rates are too high. And so I would say we don't expect a major downturn, but we also don't expect, a major upside in South America. So I would say we're not particularly worried about that market. We're also not particularly excited about that market, but it's an adequate level for us. We don't believe we need to do a lot of restructuring, if any, as we see it right now. Does that answer your question?
Sim, Peter, muito obrigado. Bom dia para vocês.
You too.
A nossa próxima pergunta é da Fernanda Urbano, da XP. Fernanda, por favor.
Bom dia, pessoal. Obrigada pelo espaço. São duas perguntas aqui do nosso lado. A primeira seria sobre a Europa. Enfim, chamou a nossa atenção, né, o bom desempenho da região, principalmente em veículos leves, e no último call vocês comentaram, né, sobre oportunidades de ganho de market share nessa região. Enfim, queria ver se vocês poderiam passar uma visão atualizada do cenário competitivo na Europa, e entender, né, com o que vocês têm de visibilidade até agora, se a gente poderia pensar para 2026 em um crescimento da Iochpe nessa região acima do crescimento esperado para a indústria consolidada. Essa é a primeira pergunta. E a segunda pergunta seria sobre supply chain. Recentemente tem circulado várias notícias na mídia, né, sobre escassez de semicondutores. Algumas montadoras até chegaram a mencionar uma possível parada de produção, mas parece que, pelo menos aqui no Brasil, a situação ela está sob controle com as garantias, né, chinesas. Então, eu queria confirmar com vocês se isso tem impactado de alguma forma e como vocês têm visto o risco de supply chain como um todo para 2026, pensando em produção automotiva global. Obrigada.
Thank you, Fernanda. So let's start with the European market. I think, from a market point of view, I believe next year there will not be a lot of growth. I don't know if it's going to be 1 or 2% contraction or 1 or 2% growth, but I think it's pretty flat, which is not a disaster. But I think we need to do something more if we wanna grow. And our plan is to continue to grow in Europe, both from an LV point of view as well as from a CV point of view. I think CV, actually, the market is destined to grow back a little bit next year. So that would be a combination of market growth and market share growth, which is well, we would be looking forward to that. And it's our target, it's our assumption that this is going to happen next year. When we talk about market share growth, in our business, if you win something, or also if you lose something, you don't lose it. If you won it, you don't lose it the next year. Or if you lost it, it will take you a little time to regain it. So once you're on this trend of gaining market share, I'm not saying it's there forever, but it's there for longer than just the current year. And so what we see happening this year in Europe, to some extent, maybe even a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, but I think the trend should be continuing into 2026. And so even though the market is kind of flattish on LV, I think we will be able to grow. And in CV, I am very, very convinced that we will grow and actually grow more than the market next year. Talking about supply chain and Nexperia coming from Holland, it's all over the news, as you can imagine. I think people were very worried, and rightfully so, until recently when there was some relaxation, as you mentioned already. So we are not, out of the woods, I would say, but it seems that it's going in the right direction. I can tell you that to date, we've had no or negligible effects in our customer releases because of this situation. So let's hope it stays like that. And as you say, it looks like there is some relaxation compared to just 1 or 2 weeks ago. Fair enough?
Tá claro. Obrigada. Bom dia.
Thank you.
A nossa próxima pergunta é da Andressa Varoto, do UBS. Andressa, por favor, pode prosseguir.
Bom dia, obrigada pelo espaço. Tenho alguns pontos aqui também. Primeiramente, falando sobre outlook para margens, pensando na trajetória de margens versus a trajetória, né, da recuperação do mercado americano. Esse nível de margem apresentado no terceiro TRI pode ser considerado o nível, digamos, normalizado até que esse volume se recupere, ou a companhia consegue expandir margem, dada a reestruturação que foi feita, apesar, né, de ainda ser um consenso que leva um tempo para esse volume recuperar. E uma outra dúvida também, ainda na América do Norte, né, a parte de componente estrutural sofreu muito mais do que a parte de rodas para veículos comerciais. Então, eu queria só entender como que é a exposição desses dois segmentos lá em relação a veículos comerciais, e entender essa diferença. Obrigada.
Thank you. I've noted 3 questions for myself here. So first of all, talking about margin and maybe normalized margin. So let me put it like this. If the North American truck market would have been similar this third quarter than what it was in the third quarter of 2024, I think our margin would have been a solid 11%. Okay, so when that market comes back, that would be my minimum expectation to be reached. And as you know, every year, all other things equal, we will be targeting some volume increase, so some top line increase, and also some bottom line increase. And so that was our target, and that will remain our target. And I feel confident we can make that happen next year based on how I see things today. I hope that answers the question on margin. On the truck market, there is, within the truck market in North America, there is large differences. The smaller trucks that we, for instance, supply with wheels, there is not such impact as what we see on the heavy trucks. And the heavier the truck gets, the more impact we see. And so I said, Tretton and Daimler on their heavy trucks, the Class 8 trucks, the biggest trucks, they really see big drops, 40%, 60%. And, that is what we are seeing as well for the products that we supply to that segment, but not for the smaller trucks. The class 4, 5, 6 actually is pretty stable. And you see that back in the wheels numbers in our company, because that's the segment that we supply from a wheels point of view. And those numbers are actually slightly up in our company. So it's a big difference within the North American truck segment between smaller trucks, medium trucks on the one hand, and heavy trucks on the other hand. Does that answer your question?
Sim, sim. Obrigada, Peter.
Ok, you're welcome.
A nossa próxima pergunta é da Luísa Mussi, do Safra. Luísa, por favor, pode prosseguir.
Bom dia, pessoal. Vocês poderiam dar um pouco mais de detalhes sobre a diferença que a gente viu no mercado americano ali em veículos leves, né? A gente viu a receita ali de roda de aço subindo 6%, enquanto a de alumínio caiu uns 18%. A gente queria entender aqui melhor o que levou essa diferença de performance. É isso aqui do nosso lado, pessoal. Obrigada.
Thank you for the question. I'm going to answer this one as well. So North American Steel Wheels is a good story for us, and I think you will see that actually, expanding that situation into 2026. We've won very significant business that has just started up in the second half of this year with a big North American EV manufacturer, and believe it or not, those are steel wheels and not aluminum wheels, and so that is a big win. That was a big win for several of our factories around the world, but the first one to start up is our plant in Mexico, and that's what you see happening on steel wheels in this case in San Luis Potosi in Mexico. So that's explaining the steel wheels story. On the aluminum side, we're changing programs between customers, and I'm very convinced next year we will see a very meaningful growth beyond the market in our plant in Mexico from a wheels point of view in Chihuahua. And so even though we have a little bit of a decline right now, we're gearing up the plant for SOPs starting now in the fourth quarter of 2025, as soon as we can, and as soon as we're ready with the tools and we can supply, and that will continue throughout 2026 and going into 27, 28. So it will be a good story also from an aluminum point of view in North America.
Tá bom,
I hope that
obrigada.
answers. Okay.
A nossa próxima pergunta é do André Mazzini, do Citi. André, por favor, pode prosseguir.
Yes, thanks, Peter, Renato, Rodrigo. I wanted to ask about the Ford aluminum factory fire in New York State that happened in September 16th, so kind of recent. It seems to have impacted the F-150 production. So, of course, Ford is the second biggest client of Iochpe. If we should expect any impact from that on the fourth quarter, this is question number one. Question number two would be any comments you could have on the Section 232 tariffs, which are, of course, on steel and aluminum. You guys have production of wheels both in the US and Mexico, so maybe those two production hubs could be affected by the tariffs. So any comments on that? Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. So the Novelis fire, of course, we've all notified that, and even though we see a little bit of impact, so it's not that we don't have impact, we see some impact, but it's more than compensated by the good news that I just talked about in the prior question from Louisa. So I think we see some impact, but we have more good news than bad news, and so bottom line, it's still a growth story for us. When you talk about tariffs, it's still the same mantra as we have been saying the last couple of calls. And so, yes, there is indirect impacts that we see. For instance, North America truck it's related to tariffs, we believe. but we don't foresee major direct impacts for our production in Mexico, or for our wheel or components production and sales in Mexico or from Mexico to the US. Still the same story. Very little direct impact, but of course we see some indirect impacts.
Great.
Hopefully that answers your question.
It does. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
Encerramos a sessão de perguntas e respostas e agora gostaríamos de passar a palavra para o Sr. Peter Klinkers para as considerações finais da companhia.
Thank you, Rodrigo. So all in all, I would say a third quarter that is a little bit weaker than what we would have wanted and than what we would have expected. But if you look at the macroeconomic environment, if you look at the North American truck market, I can say bottom line, the teams have been doing a good job on both mitigating regionally there where the issue was and is, as well as mitigating the impact from a global point of view. And I believe going forward, I've mentioned it a few times, we cannot change the market, but we will try to continue to do better than the market there where possible, there where appropriate. And you can count on us to give it our all to make that happen. And so I believe on the short-term, midterm, the market in North America will come back. We will be very well positioned to serve that market then appropriately. And then the rest of the market, we're doing good anyway. And our plan is to continue to do that also in the fourth quarter and in 2026. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
A videoconferência de resultados referentes ao terceiro trimestre de 2025 da Iochpe-Maxion está encerrada. O Departamento de Relações com Investidores está à disposição para responder às demais dúvidas e questões. Muito obrigado aos participantes e tenham um ótimo dia.